Welcome back. So we're getting a CORS exception right here, and how do we solve it? First of all, what is CORS? Well, just to give you a quick introduction to CORS, it's cross-origin resource sharing. This is Firefox's way of kind of explaining it. You can go and read the documentation, but I always felt the documentation is really hard to understand, and I've tried to find a simple way to explain to people what CORS actually is. So I'm going to kind of put it into the simplest term that I can find to explain CORS, but in general there's a little more to it than what I explain you right now, but this is the things you need to understand in order to solve these core issues right here. So when you get a CORS issue like this, it pretty much means that you are not allowed to communicate with the backend. So this front end right here, localhost 4200, is not allowed to talk to localhost 5001. So let's try and have a look at what actually happens right here. We send a request again from our Angular app to this web API, and now what happens is the web API says, wait a second, you're an Angular app on localhost 4200, I don't know who you are, I won't allow you to get my data at all. So you can just return right here a response saying, CORS, you're not allowed. So here's a cross-origin error back to you. You cannot get any data from my web API unless I whitelist you, I allow you to talk to me. Now, in order to work with CORS, we have to go to the backend. This is actually not a front-end issue, it's the backend that doesn't allow us. So I'll go into the backend and I'll go into the startup file. I'll find the configure service right here that we've been in so many times now. I'll go into services and I'll add CORS right here. There we go. Now with CORS, we can start defining what is actually allowed to kind of go to our backend right here. Now the first thing we want to do is set up some options. So we're going to, inside the CORS right here, we're going to create a CORS option setup right here. So we'll say options like this. These are the CORS option, and there'll be another option field. That's why I'm trying to kind of explaining that there's going to be another options, because when you have the options, you can also add a policy. And that's what we want to add. And our policy is going to actually be with a name first. Let's just call this the dev CORS setup right here. Then we can make one for development and we can make one for production. And this one, I'm going to explain again another Lambda expression. So this is going to be the actual policy that I want to set up for development. And that policy is going to be, I'm going to allow any origin. Now this pretty much means that anybody from any page can actually communicate to me now. Let's just keep that for a second and just remove all these pop-ups so you guys can see it. So again, the first thing I'm doing is I'm adding CORS, I'm explaining what options I want, and I want one policy in this case. There are other options, you can go and check them out. I'm going to call this dev CORS. I need to remember this name because I'm going to use that later in order to kind of use this. Now I've set it up, but I also want to use it later. And then I'm just setting up the first policy right here on how dev CORS should actually work. Allow origin is not enough, however, because we also need to explain what headers we want to allow in our system. So in this case, let's just allow any headers. And if you don't remember what headers are in requests, if we go over here and take the product request and press headers right here on the network, you'll see that all of these headers right here, I allow those now. Anything. And there are headers you could disallow, like cookies. If you don't want cookies, you could say you're not allowed to send cookies. You're not allowed to send any languages if you wanted to. But here we can decide what headers are actually allowed to send to the backend right here. And the final thing we want to allow is methods. Now the methods are pretty much the get method, put method, post method, all the different methods we have available in our system, maybe patch, you can put those in here. So this is actually allowing everything inside the request, anything, you can now send that to our backend. Now right now our policy allows anybody doing anything from anywhere. If you want to be more precise, you can actually, instead of this, you can actually allow only certain origins. So in this case, I'm only allowing people sending in HTTP localhost, and I'll even say 4200. That's the only one I allow to kind of talk to me in this system right now. So let's see if that works. The final thing I need to do in order to use CORS, here we set it up. Now we also need to use it, is to actually go down here in the development area, and then we can set up, we want to start using CORS. So we'll say app, use CORS, and this is where we need to use that name that we just created up here. So it needs to be the same name you have right here. It needs to be the same name down here. If you look at the documentation on Microsoft, they actually put in a constant here with the name in the top of the class. Makes perfect sense, but I just want to show you guys that's all it is. It's just a name that refers to this policy right here. That means that on development now we can add this, and then later on production we could add a new CORS setup for production. Let's see if it works. We'll just restart the server right here. We'll go back to the front end and we'll just refresh the page. And there we go. No more CORS issues right here. Let's look at the network. Let's actually have a look at the product call. It even seems that we actually got something back, but we're not showing it yet, so that's for us to fix in the next lesson. But for now, let's just end it right here. Now you know a little bit about CORS and how you can set that up. See you next time. Bye.